gearbox is there. I think it'll be put back together, but it would take a long time.
You're the man to get Bugatti parts as well, aren't you? You've got inside.
Oh yeah, they love me.
Mark McCann just did something that would make most people's palms sweat. He bought his very own Bugatti Veyron. But this wasn't a pristine dealership purchase with champagne and handshakes and leather-bound contracts. This Veyron came with serious complications that would terrify any rational person. The gearbox doesn't work, hasn't functioned properly in years. It's been off the road for 3 long years, sitting abandoned and deteriorating. And perhaps most shocking of all, it's literally split in half from a repair attempt that went horribly, catastrophically wrong. Most sensible people would see this mechanical disaster and run in the opposite direction without looking back. But Mark had someone in mind, someone whose reputation gave him confidence when logic suggested he should walk away. Matt Armstrong, the YouTube sensation who's currently rebuilding Alex's catastrophically crashed Bugatti Chiron, documenting every painstaking moment for millions of fascinated viewers. This is the same car that Bugatti itself flat-out refused to repair, officially declaring it a complete write-off beyond salvation. But Matt Armstrong doesn't accept impossibility as an answer. He's built his entire reputation on fixing what others deem permanently unfixable, on proving experts wrong. The logic seemed simple enough in Mark's mind. If Matt could tackle a project that Bugatti themselves had rejected outright, surely he could help with a Veyron gearbox issue, challenging as it might be. Mark had already connected with the same specialists currently working on the Chiron, the people who were making the impossible possible. If anyone can handle a tricky Bugatti situation, it's Matt, he thought with growing conviction. You've got the inside connections for parts, the knowledge, the determination that defies conventional wisdom. Meanwhile, millions of viewers watch Matt's Chiron story unfold on YouTube with religious devotion. Every single day, fans check obsessively for updates, speculating endlessly whether that crashed supercar will ever drive again, whether Matt can actually pull off what seems impossible. Comment sections explode with passionate theories and fierce encouragement. The entire automotive community has become emotionally invested in proving Bugatti wrong, in demonstrating that dedication and skill can overcome corporate declarations of defeat. Mark had been hunting for a Bugatti for months before this opportunity emerged, an obsessive quest that consumed nearly all his free time and mental energy. Every Veyron that came up for sale anywhere in the UK, he'd seen them all, studied their histories meticulously, memorized their specifications. Some were outrageously expensive, priced beyond even his ambitious reach. Others had weird specifications that didn't quite match what he wanted. The ones he genuinely desired always seemed to sell before he could make a serious move, slipping through his fingers repeatedly. Then came an unexpected call from his friend Ollie that changed everything. "Mark, I found something completely off market," Ollie said with barely contained excitement. A Mansory Bugatti Veyron, one of the absolute rarest spec Bugattis in existence. And it's cheap, really cheap compared to what these normally cost. Mark's heart skipped a beat at those words. Cheap and rare don't go together in the Bugatti world, ever. There had to be a serious catch, something fundamentally wrong. But the possibility of owning something so exclusive and desirable at a fraction of the normal price was absolutely intoxicating, impossible to ignore. Bugattis break. That's a well-known fact among owners and enthusiasts. They're incredible machines, absolute engineering marvels that push the boundaries of what's possible. But they're also complex and temperamental, requiring constant attention and expertise. Buying one that's already broken, that's not just a purchase or an investment. It's a gamble, a massive, expensive, potentially ruinous gamble with your financial future. This particular gamble could either make him the happiest man alive, the proud owner of an incredibly rare functioning hypercar with an amazing story, or it could cost him an absolute fortune with nothing but an expensive pile of scattered carbon fiber parts to show for his foolishness. The stakes couldn't possibly be higher, the risk more real. Before making any serious commitments or transferring any money, Mark reached out to Supercars, independent Bugatti specialists based in the UK who had seen and worked on almost every Veyron in the country over the years. Their reputation in the exotic car world was absolutely legendary, whispered about with reverence in exclusive collector circles. These were the people who could accomplish what official dealerships often couldn't or wouldn't even attempt: who understood these machines intimately. Their initial assessment came back cautiously optimistic, which gave Mark his first real hope. The gearbox is definitely reparable, they told him directly and honestly. Unless the casing itself is completely split open, cracked beyond any possible repair, we can fix it. We've dealt with similar issues before on other Veyrons. It's not impossible, just extremely complicated and expensive, requiring patience and precision. Hearing those words, that professional assessment from people who actually knew these temperamental cars intimately, that's all Mark really needed to push forward. The same team that was actively helping Matt Armstrong on Alex's supposedly impossible Chiron rebuild could potentially save his Veyron from permanent retirement. But Mark is nothing if not thorough and careful with major decisions. He needed to know the absolute worst-case scenario, the nuclear option, the terrifying number that would keep him awake at night if absolutely everything went wrong. How much would a brand new Bugatti gearbox cost? Straight from the manufacturer with official installation. He made an appointment at Bugatti Manchester and showed up dressed absurdly for the occasion, making a statement. A funeral-style suit paired with bright attention-grabbing shoes, completely over the top for a simple dealership visit. But Mark has always had a natural flair for the dramatic, for making moments memorable. The Bugatti representative confirmed exactly what he'd feared deep down. £300,000 for a complete gearbox installation, and that extensive work could only be performed at their London facility, nowhere else. Not Manchester, not anywhere more convenient. London only, non-negotiable. Expensive, absolutely astronomical by any reasonable standard. But now he knew the numbers, understood the upper boundary of his potential disaster, the absolute worst that could happen. Mark ran the calculations carefully in his head multiple times. Risky, yes, undeniably dangerous financially, but not impossible, not completely insane. A rare Mansory Bugatti Veyron, fully functional with a documented restoration story behind it, could be genuinely priceless to the right collectors, worth far more than his total investment. Then came the actual viewing appointment, the moment of truth he'd been anticipating with mixed dread and excitement. Mark expected perhaps a dusty Veyron missing a few panels, but essentially recognizable as a car. What he got instead was genuinely shocking, almost comical in its devastation. The car was literally split in half, torn completely apart like an automotive anatomy lesson. The gearbox had been entirely removed, leaving a gaping mechanical void where the heart should be. The massive engine sat completely exposed to the elements. Body panels were scattered randomly around the workshop, like discarded toys. Deep scratches and dense layers of dust covered every visible surface. The leather interior showed serious damage from neglect and time. This wasn't a simple repair job that could be completed in weeks. This was a complete teardown that had been sitting abandoned and forgotten for 3 full years. Thick dust covered absolutely everything like a burial shroud. Rubber seals had dried out and cracked from age. Fluids had congealed and separated. The previous garage's story started to unravel quickly under scrutiny. They claimed confidently that the clutch packs had been replaced, expensive work properly completed by competent technicians. Not true. Complete fabrication designed to increase the car's value. Metal debris scattered carelessly throughout the gearbox housing had locked up the gear selection mechanism completely. Human error, carelessness, fundamental lack of expertise had ruined a multi-million-pound machine, turning it into an expensive pile of parts. Fonger had taken over the abandoned project recently and already made substantial progress that gave Mark real hope. Gear clusters had been carefully assembled with precision and expertise. Casing sat cleaned and ready for final installation. The complex hydraulic block had been meticulously prepped according to exact specifications. All this major work had already been paid for by the previous owner before they finally gave up entirely and decided to cut their losses, to walk away from a nightmare. Only the small components remained uncertain, the details that seemed insignificant, the nuts, bolts, seals, and clips that appear meaningless but are absolutely critical to proper function. And yes, as Mark learned with growing dismay, Bugatti bolts are insanely, almost criminally expensive for what they are. Even the smallest, most innocuous-looking fastener could easily cost hundreds of pounds, and they weren't easy to source through normal automotive channels. But still, Despite all the obvious challenges and complications, hope glimmered stubbornly. Negotiations began in earnest, the careful dance of buyer and seller. The initial asking price came in at £850,000. Mark countered lower, testing boundaries. The seller pushed back firmly with $1 million, far too high for Mark's budget. Mark made his final offer, the absolute maximum his finances and courage could support. £900,000, not a penny more. He held his breath, waiting for the response that would determine his future. The owner, clearly exhausted by the entire frustrating situation and eager to move on from this expensive nightmare that had consumed years of his life, accepted without further negotiation. Just like that, almost anticlimactically, Mark had officially bought a two-piece Mansory Bugatti Veyron with a non-functional gearbox and a story that was still waiting to unfold. Still being written. The money was transferred electronically. The deal was done, legally binding. There was absolutely no turning back now, no escape from the commitment he'd made. To fund this massive automotive gamble, Mark had to make genuinely painful sacrifices from his existing collection, his beloved NSX, a car he genuinely cherished and had bonded with over countless miles, gone, sold to a new owner who'd never understand what it meant. The M3 that he'd enjoyed for years, that had been with him through good times and bad, countless miles and precious memories, gone to someone else. His rare RS200, a car he'd sworn repeatedly he'd never sell under any circumstances, gone to a stranger's garage. Even his Audi S1 rally car, a serious performance machine that brought him genuine joy every time he drove it, had to go. Each sale was genuinely painful, like saying goodbye to old friends who'd been part of his life for years, who carried memories in every scratch and worn seat. But every car sold represented another step closer to owning something truly legendary, something genuinely special and rare. United Worldwide Logistics carefully transported the Veyron in its disassembled state to Fonger's specialized facility, fully insured and professionally handled despite being scattered in pieces across multiple crates. The official rebuild could finally begin in earnest, and if the gearbox encountered any serious unexpected issues during assembly, any complications that arose from years of neglect, Matt Armstrong and his growing network of specialists had Mark's back completely. The same Matt who was actively defying Bugatti's official declarations with the Chiron, proving them wrong with every video update. Then came an emotional moment Mark had been simultaneously anticipating and dreading. He brought his partner Jane to the workshop for the big reveal, to show her what he'd actually purchased. She'd seen the pristine photos from years ago when the car was whole and beautiful and magnificent, gleaming in showroom condition. But reality hit hard and fast. Two completely disconnected halves, sitting separately, thick dust covering every surface like snow. Missing panels, leaving the car looking naked and vulnerable. Complete mechanical silence where a thunderous W16 engine should roar with authority. Jane stood shocked, genuinely speechless, struggling to process what she was seeing. Her expression said absolutely everything without requiring words. Disappointment and confusion written clearly across her face. Mark, always the optimist who sees potential where others see disaster, tried desperately to lift the mood. "It's still a Bugatti," he said with forced cheerfulness. "We actually own a Bugatti Veyron, something most people only dream about." Jane remained completely unconvinced, looking skeptically at the scattered pieces, trying desperately to picture the massive transformation that would need to occur, struggling to imagine this mechanical disaster becoming the beautiful machine it once was. This story isn't just about one man and his broken car anymore, though. Millions of people around the entire world are actively watching Matt Armstrong's Chiron rebuild unfold online in real time. Now Mark's Veyron has become part of that larger narrative, another chapter in the growing saga of ordinary people accomplishing extraordinary things with exotic cars that experts declared finished. The questions everyone's asking are simple but profound. Will the gearbox actually work when finally assembled? Will this car roar to life again after years of silence? Can Matt Armstrong and his talented team work their magic one more time without any official support from Bugatti? Can they prove once again that the impossible is merely extremely difficult, that determination overcomes obstacles? Fans across social media are constantly commenting, endlessly speculating, eagerly waiting for every single update with impatient anticipation. Every Instagram post gets analyzed obsessively. Every YouTube video gets dissected carefully frame by dedicated viewers. The world has become genuinely invested in this unfolding journey. And this isn't just Mark's personal story anymore. It's become something bigger. Fonger has begun the meticulous rebuild process in earnest, working carefully and methodically. The gearbox components, the intricate hydraulic blocks, the precisely machined casings, every single component being carefully prepared for final assembly. Matt Armstrong's expertise and hard-earned reputation loomed large in the back of Mark's mind during every workshop visit. Every small bolt, every rubber seal, every metal component could genuinely mean the difference between catastrophic failure and absolute glory, between vindication and expensive disaster. The ultimate question remains beautifully simple despite the complexity. Will this rare Mansory Bugatti come roaring back to life, a phoenix rising magnificently from the ashes of someone else's failure? Or will it remain forever a two-piece nightmare, an expensive reminder that some gambles don't pay off, that some dreams stay dreams? Mark walks through the workshop almost daily now, observing every minute detail, asking countless questions about procedures, learning everything he possibly can about the complex process of rebuilding a Bugatti from scattered pieces. Each day brings new surprises, new unexpected challenges to overcome. Sometimes frustration when unexpected issues emerge from the years of neglect and improper storage. Sometimes genuine hope when real progress happens, when another critical component slots perfectly into place. But always forward movement toward the ultimate goal. The anticipation stretches longer with each passing day, thickening the air with a quiet, electric tension that refuses to fade. What began as a simple project has evolved into something far greater, layered with complexity, risk, and an ever-deepening emotional investment. Time has been poured into it, money committed without certainty, and passion tested at every turn. The story itself seems to grow richer and more compelling, as each new challenge adds another chapter to an already gripping narrative. The stakes feel almost impossibly high now, teetering on the edge of overwhelming, yet somehow never quite tipping into defeat. Because within Mark, hope refuses to dim. Instead, it burns brighter, fiercer than the fear that shadows it. There's a reason for that belief of precedent that once seemed just as unattainable. If Matt Armstrong can take on the monumental task of rebuilding Alex's Chiron, pushing past the boundaries set by Bugatti itself, and proving that their declaration of impossible was not absolute, then perhaps this isn't a lost cause after all. Perhaps there's a path forward. Perhaps this Veyron, now split and silent, is not at the end of its story, but standing at the threshold of a remarkable return. The journey presses on relentlessly, indifferent to doubt, fueled by determination. Around the world, people watch closely, holding their breath without even realizing it, drawn into the gravity of what's unfolding. And in the heart of that busy workshop, surrounded by tools, grit, and unwavering resolve, a dismantled Bugatti Veyron waits, patiently not as a relic of failure, but as a machine poised for redemption, ready for its hard-earned second chance at life.